This conference will now be recorded.
So we'll cover today monitoring part, how to monitor, what to monitor the HANA database. So what are the tools are available for monitoring? So basically, three tools are available for database monitoring. The first is the HANA Studio, which is common. We all know that HANA Studio, how to connect, how to create the connection and all that. So basically, HANA Studio is not only used for monitoring purpose, but it is also used by the BW, ABAP to develop their programs, code, and the modeling views. So development activity is also done through the HANA Studio. User creations, role creations, everything is done through the HANA Studio. You can also take up backups and you can recover from the HANA Studio as well. HANA Cockpit also used for monitoring and troubleshooting purpose. So basically, this HANA Cockpit is only designed for the HANA admin team, like for basis and HANA admin, to monitor the database. So HANA Studio is the graphical user interface. You need to install HANA Studio on your laptop or desktop. But HANA Cockpit, you don't need to install anything on your laptop or desktop. HANA Cockpit is the URL base, and you have to just provide the links in your browser, and then it will open the HANA Cockpit Launchpad, and then you enter your user ID and password of HANA Cockpit, and then whatever the systems database are integrated in the HANA Cockpit, those database you can monitor and troubleshoot. Whatever you do from the HANA Studio, like monitoring, troubleshooting, then taking of backups, whatever the administrator task you are doing from the HANA Studio, same you can do from the HANA Cockpit as well. HANA Cockpit, to use HANA Cockpit, you need to install HANA Cockpit servers on separate box, separate hardware. Minimum the memory required for HANA Cockpit is 32 GB. It required minimum 32 GB for the installations, and installation takes 2 hours or maybe 2 to 3 hours, depends upon the hardware capacities. HANA Cockpit is integrated in HANA 1.0, but in HANA 2.0, the HANA Cockpit is separate installation. So when you install HANA 1.0, then HANA Cockpit is installed by default. It is integrated in 1.0. But when you install HANA 2.0, you don't see the HANA Cockpit. So HANA Cockpit is now separate installation in HANA 2.0. So we call HANA Cockpit 2.0. So this is another difference between HANA 1.0 and 2.0. In 1.0, the HANA Cockpit is integrated. In 2.0, HANA Cockpit is separate installation. This HANA Cockpit is developed in the UI5 technology, that is we call Fury. It is based on the Fury. So the Fury Launchpad is there. URL, the HANA Cockpit URL, that is nothing but the Fury URL. Looks and feels are look like an user interface is like Fury, because it is developed in the UI5 technology. So in HANA Cockpit, two things are there: HANA Cockpit Manager and HANA Cockpit Launchpad. In HANA Cockpit Manager, we integrate the remote database which you want to integrate. So whatever the database you want to monitor from the HANA Cockpit Launchpad, you have to integrate those database into the HANA Cockpit Manager. So we'll see more in detail. So we have the separate topic for the HANA Cockpit 2.0 installation, configuration, and the monitoring. So we'll see more in details. The third is the SAP DBA Cockpit. So you know that DBA cockpit transaction. So if you install ABAP on HANA database, you will get a DBA cockpit. Not only the HANA, you will get a DBA cockpit on any application running on the any database. So we have the DBA cockpit to monitor the database. If you are running Oracle SQL, then we use the DBA cockpit for monitoring the database from the application layer. The similar, like if you are running ABAP on the HANA database and you want to monitor from the application level, then you can use a DBA cockpit and then you can monitor your database. The thing is that from the DBA cockpit, you can monitor only your tenant database. You cannot monitor the system DB. HANA Studio, HANA Cockpit, you can monitor tenant database and then system DB. Your application is always connected to the tenant database through the schema. So it only monitor your tenant database where your schema is connected with your application. Any questions, guys, till now?
No.
Anyone others?
No.
No.
Fine, let's move ahead. So whatever I explained, it is written in very short. Yeah, so that's fine. So HANA Studio, if you see that this we call a administrator views. Okay, so here we monitor the things. Okay, so we'll see what we monitor and how to monitor and what things we need to take care on daily basis. This already we covered. What is backup, catalog, content, provisioning, and the security. This is the HANA cockpit from 1.0. Okay, so if you have the HANA 1.0, in HANA 1.0, HANA cockpit, that is we call 1.0, it is integrated. If you want to launch HANA cockpit, then you just right click on your SIDs, then go to the configuration and monitoring, and then click on the open HANA cockpit. So this is on the HANA 1.0, but in HANA 2.0, it is having separate installation. Like this, it will open like this. So it is, if you see that, it is look and feel are Fury based. So HANA cockpit is designed on UEFI technology, which runs on the on a browsers. These are the tiles. So these are tiles, the Fury tiles. If you see that use memory, CPU used, so just click, you will get the details. But in the HANA Studio, the looks and user experience is different. Yeah, so we'll see that in the systems. Okay, so DBA cockpit. Yeah, so this is the DBA cockpit I explained. Okay, so we'll go in the systems and we'll see how to monitor. I'm logging in the system DB. So we have to monitor the system DB and then tenant database as well on daily basis. So what to monitors? We'll see that. Just double click on SIDs to open the administrative console. So on a daily basis, first point is always you make sure that your all services are up and running. So all services started. That is green. Okay, so this we have to monitor on a daily basis. And if you see that it is here, it is showing the system users whether it is development systems, quality, test, demo, or production. So it will show you the system users type. Here you can see that the start time. So the system started this one, and the last service start time is this one. Okay, so in the HANA systems, okay, so which service started recently, you can, by looking this one, you can check that one. Okay, so sometime what happened in the live scenario, you started the systems on weekend month back, and then in between sometime your some services got restart automatically. Okay, so you can see you can see the most recent service start date and time. If you want to see which service is started recently, then simply you go into the landscape and then go to the services. Okay, then here you can see the start time and the end time. Yeah, you start date and the time. By looking this one, you can you can you will notify that which services started at recently. So this will help you in case of to identify any issues. If is there for example if you started the servers 1 month back, and then after that your index server restarted automatically due to the out of memory error or out of memory issues, and then after restart automatically, then that out of issues resolved. So by looking this one, you can see that your name servers, index servers restarted on xyz date. So you will see the all the logs and the trace for the index servers on this particular date and time. So this will help you to identify the issues why services got restarted on particular day and time. Okay, so those information you will get most recent service start. Okay, start time, most recently started services. Here it is showing whether your systems is distributed or single systems. So if it is no, that it means that your system is the single systems, it is not distributed. Here it will show you the version. Okay, 48. So I am not upgraded to 52. Okay. Build time. Okay, so this build time for the OS. So what time the VMs and the OS are built. This is the OS version. This is the kernel version for the OS, and this is the platform. Okay, if it is Google, Azure, AWS, if it is on the clouds, so you will see the names for the cloud providers. If it is on the on-premise, then you will see the hardware vendors name like HP, IBM, Wipro, Dell, like this. Okay, here you can see the alerts. So whatever the alerts is generated by the statistic servers, you can see in the show alerts. If you click on the show alert, it will take you to alert tabs. Okay, so here if you see that we have one high priority alerts. So what is that exactly? So if you click on the show alert, it will take you to alert tab. Okay, and here if you see that here it is saying that data backup does not exist. Without data backups, your database cannot recover. So it's giving you the alert that you have not taken your database backups. So without database backups, you cannot recover your database in case of your system is crashed. So what action we have to take? So for each and every alerts, you will see the action. So if you double click on your alert, it will show what action what user action has to be performed. So if you see here, it is saying that it is mentioning that user action perform database backup excellence. So whatever the alerts you get in the systems, you will see the user action. So it will clearly mention mentioning what we have to perform. Okay, so this way you can check the alerts. You can also configure the alerts so that if you want these alerts to be triggered and trigger in your inbox, then you can also configure the emails. So here you can go configure checks, and then here you can put the sender email ID, SMTP servers, and then SMTP port. So these SMTP servers and SMTP ports, should be reachable from your HANA OS level. So telnet and the ping should be, working. Otherwise, you won't get the mail notification. So you can have your center email ID, the recipient. So whatever the recipient you want to add, you can add the recipient. Okay. So whatever whoever the recipient, they will get the email notification if there is any alerts generated. You can configure the threshold for your alert as well if you go in checks. Okay, so you can configure the threshold. If you see here, for example, memory uses. Okay, if memory usage is 95%, then you will get a low the alerts. If 98%, then you'll get a medium alerts, and for the 100 you will get the high. So this is not good. Okay, so we want alerts should be you know should get you know not for the 100%. So you can optimize this, like you can have the 90% here, then you can have 85% here, then you can have 80 like this. So you can configure whatever the alerts you want to modify the threshold. You can configure and then click on the save. Click on the OK button. So it will it will reconfigure the threshold. If we go here, you can see that. Okay, so whatever I have configured, so here on 80% utilization of the physical memory, I will get a low, and for the medium 85% and the high 90%. So this way I can configure the threshold for the alert. So there are a lot of things. Whatever you want to configure, you can just uh, use that one. So if you see the license expiry 30, 40, and 70, 7 days, so that is fine. So whatever the alerts you want to configure, you can configure this one. You can also configure these alerts from the solution manager. If you have the solution managers, then you can configure the alerts, early watch alert, and then alerts monitoring for your HANA database, and you will get the alerts from the solution manager as well. So whatever is feasible, you can. So mostly I use the solution manager. Okay, for alert configuration, all that. Okay, if you configure this one, then you will get a lot of things. So if you see here, if I put the this one, yeah. So here you can select. Sorry. So also here you can select what alerts you want in emails. Okay, like you need a CPU users or disk users, you just select and then click OK. Okay, so here after adding this one, you have to select whatever the alerts you want in inbox. Otherwise, you will get all the alerts. Okay, so just select whatever alerts you want in your inbox. Okay, like this. So it's very simple. Coming to the memory part. Okay, so in the memory, HANA used memory and the resident memory, we have two parts in the memory. So HANA used memory, basically the memory used by the HANA database processes. Okay, so if you see here, we have allocation limit, used memory, peak used memory, and the used memory. So used memory is nothing but the current used memory. Okay, used memory is nothing but current used memory. So what is the current use? So current use, if you see that 7.20, 7.20 is the current use. Peak use memory is nothing but the maximum use. So maximum use memory is 7.22. Okay, and then allocation limit is this one. So 56.61 GB is allocated to the system DEV. Okay, so this is the global allocation. This is the global allocation limit for my entire HANA database. Okay, so here we monitor the these all these things. Okay, for the system DB and the tenant database. So this part is common. this part is common. This part will be different for systemdb and then tenant database. So we monitor basically most of the time we monitor the alerts for tenant database, because in the tenants we have a lot of things. Okay, so this part will be different for systemdb. The alerts for systemdb will be different, and for tenant database alert will be different. So both having their own alert mechanisms. Okay, so this part is also different for your tenant database and for your uh, system database as well. Okay, so this will be the memory allocated limit for your system DB or your tenant database. For example, you have 1 TB of the RAM, and you have 2 tenant database and 1 system DB. If you want to restrict like this, 400 GB for one tenant, 400 GB for another tenant, then 200 GB for system DB. So here you will see the 200 GB. Okay, 200 GB for your system DB. And if you log in tenant database, and if you see, you will see that 400 GB for your tenants. Okay, like this. So we have to monitor our memory utilization. So what are the memory we have allocated, that we have to monitor whether it is underutilized or highly utilized. Okay, so this we have to monitor daily, and we have to note down in the Excel sheet. Okay, so this is the HANA used memory by the HANA processes. The resident memory is referring to a physical memory. So resident memory is nothing but HANA used memory plus the memory used by the other processes. Other processes means OS processes or any other process are running apart from the HANA. So that we call a resident use memory. So resident memory is nothing but a physical memory. So if you see that database resident memory is 3.39, so forget about this one. So this value is always incorrect. So database resident memory, the total resident memory and the physical memory. So physical memory we have 63 point something, 62 point something, 62.90. That is nothing but my physical memory, which is configured on this VM, physically available. Total resident memory is used means means used memory by HANA database plus other processes. And database resident is nothing but a database, the memory used by the database process. Okay, so this is referring to a resident memory. So resident memory is always referred to your physical memory, and resident use memory, that is the total use memory, is nothing but the memory used by the HANA processes plus other processes. The CPU uses, so you will see that this figure always different. So here you will see physical memory the same for your system DB and your tenant database, because system DB and the tenant database are using the same physical memory. Here you will see the same thing for system DB and your tenant database, but here you will see different values, depends upon whatever you have configured. Okay, for the CPU users, the CPU usage is always in percentage. If you have 4 CPU, 10 CPU, 20 CPU, it won't give you the numbers. It will just show you the number in usage in percentage. For example, if you have 20 CPU, so how much percentage is used by HANA, the database? So it will show you in the percentage. Right now, 0% is used. If you see the database CPU use current, first one is the current database CPU uses 0%. Total CPU usage is 0%. Okay, the maximum CPU uses, maximum CPU is 100%. We have maximum CPU is 100%. So first is database CPU uses, total CPU uses. So if you see that, this means that the CPU is used by the database process, this first one. Okay, first 0, and then second 0 is referring to total CPU used by the database plus other process, and then maximum CPU uses. So maximum CPU, here we have the 100%. If it is reached to 100%, that is mean that you uses the your HANA database is using the 100% of maximum CPU. Okay. Any doubt till now here? Any questions?
For the resident memory, the it includes the HANA processes as well as other processes like OS you said. What else can it include except for the OS processes?
Whatever it includes. Okay, so yeah, so some other processes like if you are using antivirus like non-HANA non-SAP process. Okay, so like the OS team, they execute some agents for monitoring alerts purpose. Okay, so those also part of the non-HANA process. Okay, like this. So any non-HANA process is whatever is there, whatever non-HANA process used memory, that will come under the total resident use memory. Does this answer your question?
Yeah, so if I have any third party integration and stuff, all the I mean whatever, for example, we check from the task manager, that entire thing will be
Yes,
there included in.
correct. So like if you have configured the third party backups like Veritas backups or NetApp, okay, whatever it is, so they install the agent on the HANA database. So agent will run. So when agent will run to trigger the backups for HANA database, then it utilize the memory and CPU. Okay, so that memory, the utilizations is come under the total resident memory use. So it is non-HANA database process. It is not a database process. So if you see the database process, only this one. Okay, whatever there in the the landscape of the system DB and the tenant database, these all are the HANA processes. Apart from this, all refer as a non-HANA database process. Either it is OS process, whatever we see in the task managers, or whatever you see in the top. If you execute a top command here, I'll show you that. If you execute top command, then these all are the. So if you see that here, this is the HANA processes. So whatever running with your SID area, it is the HANA process. Whatever running with the non-SID ADM like root or SAP ADM, okay, like this. So these all are the non HANA process. Okay, so if you see that here we have the memory. Here we have the memory. Okay, so this is comes under the resident. So resident memory is nothing but HANA used memory plus non-HANA used memory. These all are clear. This one?
Yeah.
Fine. Guys, any other questions from other?
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, Prashant.
Sir, when the allocation memory gets full, so what's need to do troubleshooting on that?
If allocation memory is getting full regularly, that means that your database is growing. You have to resize. You have to do the delta sizing. Okay, you have to increase your RAM. Okay, otherwise you have to archive the data from your database so that your memory utilization will be under control. If it is not possible to archive or to add the memory in the database, if it is not possible, then you can restrict the memory uses for your single statement. So we'll see that in configuration. So we can restrict memory for a single statement. For example, the state for example, if you restricted like 50 GB, so the single statement cannot use more than 50 GB. So in the HANA systems, the people, consultant or users, they execute the reports which consume lot of memory and which cause uh, the highest uses of the memory, and you will get a out of dump the memory out. What is that? Out of memory dumps. Okay, so to resolve this one, so you can restrict the memory allocation for single statement. So memory, allocation is full. There may be many cases like I said that the database is going, or the user is executing, the SQL statement, which is taking, more the memory. Okay, because of their code is not optimized. Okay, they have written some code which is not memory optimized, and it is causing, high uses. So in that case, you can restrict the memory for your single statement. We'll see that in configuration. Yeah. Any other questions?
Sir, is there
No, sir.
a way to perform archiving activity from DB level, or we should do it from application level?
Application level.
Okay.
Yeah. So DB level, we don't do anything. So it is application data, and then application team has to perform the archive. So whatever the tables we have, the largest tables, you can give the largest tables by from extracting the from HANA database, and then you can say that this is the largest tables in HANA database, which is causing the high memory uses. You just do an archive. So how to extract the largest data tables? I will show you that in this monitor as well. Any other questions? No. So we'll move. Fine. So coming to the disk uses. So in the disk uses, we have data volumes, log volumes, and then HANA share. Okay. So so basically, we have the separate mount point for the HANA data SID that we call a data volumes, and then HANA log SID that is we call a log volumes, and HANA share we call HANA share. Okay, so we should have the separate file systems for each and every volumes. Okay, so what we have to monitor for the volumes. So if you see that here, data volume size, total disk usage, and total disk size. So you have to monitor this for your tenant database. System database is not required because system database doesn't hold any data. Okay, your system database doesn't hold any users data, but tenant database hold all the information of your database. So basically, always monitor. Uh, so when you do a monitoring, you do a monitoring for your tenant database, and also you can do a monitoring for your system database. Not on the daily basis, but weekly basis. But tenants, you have to monitor on daily basis. Fine. So here, what I want to highlight. So for database growth, if you want to monitor the database growth of your database for tenants, then you have to log into the tenant database and you look for this information. So if you see data volume size, so this data volume size is nothing but the database size of your tenant database. Okay, so let me log into the tenants, otherwise you will get confused. So look and feel for the overview will be same. Why it is not? So in the project, they the team monitor these all these things, and they note there's all monitoring data in Excel, like for the HANA use memory, there will be a tab in the Excel, use memory, peak use memory, allocated limit. Okay, they will put the information. The use memory 7.23 like this, for resident memory as well for this uses, database volume size. These all these three in separate the columns or separate rows. Sorry, in this uses, and they will put the information CPU uses. Okay, the alerts. What is the high alerts? So if they want only high alerts, then they will put the alerts, high alerts in the Excel sheet, and then after once the monitoring is done, then they will send it to the senior peoples, and the senior people will check, and then they will take the action. So junior people in my project, they monitor all these things, and they record everything in the Excel sheet, and then this is shared, and then we review, and then if any criticality, then we take action. Fine. So if you see here, this is look and feel for your tenant database. So if you see, the alerts is different for your tenants and then system. In the system, we are getting only one alerts, but in tenants, we are getting two alerts. Okay, so what is the second medium one? We'll see that. So nothing is there. Okay, the one medium alerts, nothing is there. Okay, so if you double click here, investigate the medium high alert notification, medium and high alerts, nothing. So we can ignore this one. So nothing is there. Okay. So if you see here, here is the data volume for your database. So 3.75 is the actual database size for my tenant database, and then total disk uses is 67 GB. Okay, and then total size for my file system is 200 GB. So total size is 200 GB for my data volumes, HANA data SID. Inside that, the size for my tenant database is 3.75. Okay, 3.75 GB. So what is that 67? Why it is showing total disk usage? So if you see, the 67 content my 3.75 GB plus my all the DVDs. So I have kept my all DVDs on the mount point, same mount point, that is on the root of the same locations. Okay, so almost 62 GB of my DVDs size is there, so which is also referring. So it will show you the total disk uses, total file system uses, and this is the matter. So whenever you take a backup for your tenant database, it will take backups only for 3.75 GB, not for others. So this is the others data, non database files, like media, and then other files we keep sometime in the location, like for backup, something kind of. Okay, so if you put anything on that data volumes, HANA data SID, then your disk users will increase. Okay, so ensure that you do not keep anything on your on the data volumes. So in this systems, it is a training systems. Okay, so I have only one mount point for data volumes, log volumes, and the HANA share. Okay, so one file system for all three, but in the real systems, you will having the separate file systems for separate volumes. So make sure that you do not put anything on data volumes and the log volumes, except the HANA database. Same thing for the log volumes. The log size is 2.02, and then total disk usage is 60.16. Here, it is on the same file systems. It's showing the same the inputs. The trace volumes. So trace volumes, it's nothing but it's coming from the USR SAP HANA shared. Okay, so in the HANA shared, we have all the traces. Trace means nothing but the logs. So in SAP application, we call a work directories. Here we call a trace directories. So in the trace directories, all the logs are there for your system DB and the tenant database. So here we call a trace. We don't call a logs. So here we call a trace. So whenever you start the HANA database, then your services stop and start. So whenever you restart, then all the traces are written for each and every services. So each and every services has their own trace files. Okay, so whenever you restart, your the services get updated, services get restarted, and then it's write the trace to the trace files. So the sometime what happened, that trace files, all is growing. So we have to monitor this one as well to ensure that the trace volumes are under utilized. If you don't monitor this one, and if your trace file is generating, and if you don't do a cleanup, so basically we do the cleanup for the trace volumes, okay, monthly basis, so that HANA share cannot should not get full. Okay, if HANA share full, the HANA share mountain is full, then your database will crash. So database, you won't able to connect to the database, so you have to do the cleanup, then you have to restart your uh, HANA database. Yeah, so this is also very important. Any questions here till now?
So when we do the DB refresh, we'll be calculating the data volume size and the log volume size only, not the second one.
Yes, correct. This one.
Okay. And how do we clean the trace volumes? Like you mean removing it to some other directory, not HANA shared, keeping the HANA shared free? Or
Yeah,
we
so I'll cover this part later. So there's a script. The HANA database provides some script. You can schedule, or if you want, you can delete it from the OS level. You go and for the older files, you just select and delete. Okay. Otherwise, there is a one SAP note which gives you the script which you can schedule in the OS level with the cron tab, and this will runs. You have to schedule for you know after weekly or bi-weekly, something kind of. So whenever the jobs run, OS the jobs run, it will do the cleanups. Yeah, same like we do the cleanup for the work directories. Yeah.
is it
Does
the
this
HANA
answer?
script or other one?
Yeah, it is not the HANA script, so it is written in the Python script, but it is not developed by the HANA. Okay, it is developed by some other third party. So SAP doesn't support. So SAP says that if you want, you can use that one. We call a HANA cleaner cleanup script. If you Google, you will get the information on that HANA cleanup script. So that is Python scripts. Yeah, we schedule in the cron tab, and we give the occurrence. So when weekly or bi-weekly or monthly you want to run, you can just schedule that in the cron tab with the help of the OS team. Does this is answer your question?
Yes, yes. Also, the total disk usage value will be same for system and tenant DB, right?
System and tenant total disk size users. Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Because they will
Only
be
the
using the yes.
Mm.
This will differ
Okay.
because the total disk size will be same. Total disk users will be same for system and all the tenant database because they are using the common storage. Okay, but the data volume size will be different for your tenants and your system database. If you see, this is 3.75 is the DB size for my tenants. If you see your system DB, the size is 3.50. But if you see the disk users and the total disk users are same, because the both instance database or system DB are using the common disk, that is the HANA data SID, HANA log SID, and HANA share. Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Any other question, guys?
Can you please go to the more information part? What are these mentioned?
Sorry.
More information. You can hear it is mentioned under trace volume. More information.
I will cover this part later. Yeah. So I'll come into that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you click on the more, then it will take you to volumes. Okay, so volumes is nothing but your the mount point file systems. Okay, so I'll come to that point as well. No questions from this screen, right? So let's move to the next tab. So in the landscape, so this landscape information are stored in the name servers for systemdb, and for tenants stored in the index servers. So this is the topological information of your HANA systems. In the services, you can see these all this. So whatever you monitor here, if you get this one all services started, that means that you will get all the greens. If you see anything like some services are not started, then you will see some are in the yellow, or maybe in the red. Okay, so here you will see that. So here you will see the port number. This is the internal port number. This is host name, internal port number, then services, then which one is the masters. So this name server is always master in the system DB, and in the tenants, the index server will always master. Start time, okay. The CPU uses for each and every the processes, memory uses for each and every processes, okay. Used memory by process wise, if you see that, okay. Then pick used memory by process wise. So by looking this one, you can identify which the process are taking more memory. So if you see in the tenant database, you will see the same, but the utilization will be different. Yeah. Okay. So if you see that, so in the tenants, you will always see that index server is utilizing more memory. Okay. Then here you can see the physical memory used. Okay. Effective allocation limit is nothing but the memory allocated to the tenant database or system database. Peak use memory. Okay, you can see the SQL port. This is the external SQL port which we use for connection. Okay, fine. So coming back to the system DB, here if it is a single host, single host system, then you will see the one host. Okay, one host name. If it is multi-host, then you will see the multiple host name here. Okay, so yeah, so if it is multiple host, then you will see here yes. If it is yes, then you will see the multiple host name here. Okay, so one will be a standby if you have the the HA, then one will be a standby. So here you will see that active, and one the standby will be in the gray out. But this will standby is always be active. uh, the name server will always active on the standby. I'll cover that part is later. Okay, so here you will see the lot of the host name. Okay, if it is distributed installations, the redistribution. So this is very advanced topic. If you want to optimize the table partition, if you want to perform, then you can perform from redistribution. Okay, so if you go in the tenants, you have the redistribution. So we perform for redistributions for the tenant database. So in the system DB, we don't have any data. So table distribution partition will not be there in the system DB, so that we have to done to the uh, in the tenant database. So table optimization, table partitioning. Okay, so these all are the advanced topics. So basically this basically used in scale out system, like in distributed environments. You have the multiple nodes. If you want to distribute the tables, okay, across the nodes, then you can perform the table partitioning, table distributions. Yeah. For the system replication, so system replication is always configured for system DB. Okay, because system DB is a single point of failure. Once you configure the system DB for the HA or DR, that is the once you configure the just a minute. Once you configure the HANA system replication for HA or the DR in the system DB, under the system replication tab, you will see your primary host, then secondary host, replication mode, whatever the replication mode you use, the replication status, whether it active, inactive, or unknown, something kind of. Okay, so you can see, so you can monitor your replications, whether the data is whether the logs or data is replicating from the primary to secondary. You can monitor the replication status from here. So we'll cover that in the replication, system replication part. At the end, okay, we'll see that we configure the two system for HA or DR, and then we'll see that what we can see from here. So right now you cannot see anything, you won't able to understand. So when you start a system replication topics, that time you will get all this. So from this step, you can monitor your the replication. So daily basis we monitor this one, and we make sure that the replication started is always active. If you see that it is unknown, inactive, something kind of, that means that your replication is not working. So data is not replicating from the primary to the secondary. That is very important. The rest, like the performance, volumes, configuration, the rest part you have to monitor in the for performance you have to monitor this in tenant database. So in system database we don't have anything. Okay, so you won't see any performance issue in the system DB, but tenant database is having a lot of users in the data, so we monitor the performance, the tabs in the tenant database. So what is there in the performance? So performance tab is nothing but a similar like SM66 or SM51 transaction code of a SAP application, where you can the monitor your process running, what reports, tables running in the work process by which users. Okay, so those all information you can see in the threads. If you click on the performance, if you go in the threads, you will see all the threads. Okay. Sorry, my kids is knocking the door. Yeah. So yeah. So here in the threads, you can see the number of threads are running by the users. So as of now, we have only I logged in only. So this all threads is showing by with my name. So if you see here, we have the port number of index servers. So index server I exception you'll see here is the host name, connection ID. Okay, then the statement threads query. If you double click this one, you'll see the queries. Okay, like this. So yeah, and if you go there, you will see that the duration. So duration, the for this statement running, then users. So this is the database user, and this is the application users. So application user is nothing but your SU01 users. Okay, if you are connected from HANA Studio to the system DB, then this user is always your Windows user ID. Okay, and in the session, if you want to see what session are running with this particular threads, for example, if you want to see the session running for what are the session running for this these threads, so just right click on that the threads, and then navigate to the session with the connection ID. So it will show you the session running with the that particular threads. So this session are running, sorry, this session is running with that particular for that particular threads. Okay, so here basically what we have to monitor. Okay, so nothing. Okay, not much. You just only can see the number of session, number of threads are running. Okay, so in this session you will see the number of sessions are running. So yeah, so you can see only who running what and from where and how and when. Sorry, not how, from by when that the statement are executing. The main part is the block transaction. Okay, this is very important. Okay, in the threads and session, you can monitor the threads and the sessions are run by the users. Okay, the execution time you can monitor from this one. But in the block transaction, if there is any block transaction, if there is any block transactions, you will see the block transaction over here. So if you see block transaction for longer period of time, that means that there may be some issue with the database performance. So make sure that there should not be any block transaction. So if any block transaction is there, then you will see the transaction name, who blocked that one, duration. So you will get all the details, users, the application user, the application source. You will get all the details. Okay, so if you have block transaction, that means that it will degrade the performance of your HANA database. You have to contact that users, and then you have to ask them to cancel those transaction whatever they are running. Okay, so block transaction means you are running something and you are blocking that statement on that particular object on tables, and other users is trying to execute the something on that particular object which is blocking by you. So those if that block is longer period of time, then you will see block transition here. So that means that that is critical for your database. You have to contact the person and then ask for cancel the the execution of that statement or transaction whatever it is. Yeah, so here you make sure that there should not be any block transactions. SQL plain cache. So whenever you execute any statement, SQL statement from application or from database directly, then each and every SQL statement in the HANA database, it's generate the plan cache. So plan cache nothing but the execution plan. So all the execution plan are stored in the SQL plan cache. So whatever new statement, for example, if you are executing any new statement, SQL statement, then HANA database will recognize that that statement is not present in the SQL plan cache. If it is not present in the SQL statement plan cache, then it will so this is so that will okay, let me explain some other way. Okay, so whatever the SQL statement you execute in the HANA database, so each and every SQL statement is having their own execution plan. So execution plan is used for for optimizing your performance. So HANA database automatically create the execution plan for your SQL statement one time. Okay, and then store that SQL statement with the execution plan in the SQL plan cache. Okay, if that query is executed first time in the HANA database. Okay, again if you execute the same query, then HANA database will look for the SQL plan and it will search for the query and it will execute that statement. So that statement the second time will execute faster. Okay, so this SQL plan cache is basically used to optimize your query performance. Okay, for example, what is there in the execution plan? So execution plan contain the we call the path, the cost for your SQL statements. So whatever the minimum cost for that particular SQL statements will be stored in the SQL plan cache. So just one example, I'm executing a simple query XYZ, whatever it is, that query is the new queries. Okay, new query I executed. So when I execute this query, the SAP will look for is there any SQL plan cache for this statement. It will search, and if it doesn't find, then it will generate the cost. It will generate the cost automatically. So it will apply the multiple algorithm automatically in the backgrounds, and then it generate the cost. So whatever the cost is lower for executing that query, the lowest cost always store in the SQL plan cache. So when you execute next time the same query, then the database look for the SQL plan cache and it will execute that query. So your query will be executed faster, and with the help of SQL plan cache, your query is also optimized. So it is automatic in the HANA database, but in the oracles you have to generate the execution plan, then cost, that is manual, but in HANA database it is automatic. For expenses statement trace, so if you have enabled any expenses statement, if you have enabled the trace for the expenses statement, so whatever the expenses statement is there, you will see here. So you will see the DB user, application users who executed that, executing that SQL statement, which is very expensive. So you can get the details, and then you can contact your users or developers to tune this all expenses statements. Okay, so we have to enable the expenses statement trace. Okay, so basically we always enable in the configuration. So this configuration part we'll see next week. So in that everything is covered, expenses statement trace, enabling, and then configuring the trace configuration. Everything will be done, configuration of your tenant database, your system database, then memory allocation for your tenants, the systems. Everything will be done on maybe on the next week, maybe. Yeah. Okay, so here expenses statement, whatever the expenses statement you have, you will see here in the job progress. If you running any job in the HANA database, okay, from application or from database directly from the HANA Studio, you will see the job progress. So basically, what kind of jobs you can see here? So like backups. So backup run for longer. So if you schedule the backups, then your backup jobs will be, you can see your backup jobs running here. So if your backup if backup is running, then you can see the backup jobs here. If you see that backup job is there in the job progress, that means that your backup is running. So you can see the whatever the jobs are running in the HANA database, so you can see in the job progress. So basically the jobs are very executed faster, except the backups. If you trigger the backups, then the backups will be there for longer period of time, and you can monitor your backups. If no jobs is there, that means that nothing is running on the any database layer. Any questions from this performance tab, guys?
So I have one question. So
Yeah.
can we say that this plain cache contains index related information so that we can retrieve the table data faster?
No, it is not index related. It is related to your SQL statement cost. So we don't have the index concept in the HANA database, because index is always required if you have the disk-based database. So index is not required in HANA database because all your data is there in the memory. So we don't
cost
have index. Yeah. Sorry.
So what do you mean by cost? Like, is it meant like path or like the way?
Execution path. Execution path. So which is the shortest path for the execution?
Okay.
So whatever the shortest path, so the multiple path you can execute. Multiple part is there, for the SQL statement execution. So whatever the the path having the low cost, will be updated in the SQL plan cache. So a SQL statement with the low cost you will find in the SQL plan cache. So yeah, which will reduce your query, which increase your query performance. So yeah, so if you see that execution time, maximum execution time, average execution time, last execution times, okay, last preparation times. So whenever you execute any statement, it will prepare, and then it will prepare, and then so whatever the it will prepare for multiple path execution of your SQL statement, and the execution cost, like the cost for your path which is lowest, those will be updated in the this SQL plan cache. Yeah. Any questions? Other questions?
So,
For
sir,
the
yes, Jaita, continue.
Yeah.
no, please continue. I'll
Okay, so like what are the different HANA thread types? Do you have any slide where we can see the information?
About
Thread type, like for application layer, we have dialog, work process, background. So here we have also threads. So it must have different types.
no, we don't have any threads types. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you
for
see
the
that, yeah, good. Yeah.
So for the expensive statements, once we enable the configuration, it just keeps getting accumulated over here, which means that any kind of expensive statements related to my database, it will just be stating it. We don't need to enable any trace to understand the expensive statements like we do in SAP.
To understand the expenses statement you're talking about? No.
Yes.
Yeah. So we don't need to enable anything. So yeah. So if is there any expenses statement, then that So if you see in the for example, so developers what they do with the expenses statement, they go in the SQL console, then they type their SQL statement and select, and then when they right click, they just go in explain plan, visualization plan. So with this explain plan and the visualization plan, they understand the issues with their queries. So we don't need to do anything. So everything is there by default. If you write, select statement, and if you select, and then if you go right click, and then if you want to uh, plan explain plan for your SQL query, if you execute here, it will open the plan cache.
But it will keep accumulating all the expensive SQL statement in that tab, or it just I mean at
Come
the
again, sorry.
moment. So it will keep accumulating all the expensive statements in that tab, or it will just
No,
show
you're breaking.
momentarily.
You are breaking. I'm also. So guys, you are also getting Chaita voice breaking.
No, it is
Come
clear
again.
for.
Yeah, am I audible now?
Yeah. Tell me.
So I mean, it will keep generating all the expensive SQL statements listed over here, or at the moment, whatever the expensive statements are, it will list down those only.
At the moment. At the
So
moment.
once I stop the database and then again I restart, those details will be gone. So say suppose before 1 week, whatever were the expensive statements, if I need to go back and check, it will not show the information over here.
No, it won't show.
Okay.
But there is a diagnostic files. So under the diagnostic files, the files will be created as the expenses statement. Okay, once you enable the expenses statements, so one trace file will be created for expenses statement. So whatever the expenses statements are there, you will see those in that SQL in that trace files. Maybe yesterday's, last week, last month, something like that. So you can see, but here you can only see the current one.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Any other question, guys? Fine. Coming to the volumes. So volumes, we have log volumes, data volumes. Here you will see the services, the persistent services only, which store the users data or system related data. So index server, if you see that, if you go in the volumes, if you select index servers, if you expand, if you see that here it is showing the total volume size, data volume size, and then log volume size. So if you expand this one, you will see data and the logs. So where my data is going for index servers, it is under the HANA data SID, then MNT 00001, then HDB 0003.003. So this is the folders HDB 003.003. Okay, so if you see the .003, okay, so this is referring to your port number of your index servers. If you go in the landscape services, the port number for index server is 003 at the end, 003, this one. So this indicates your internals, the port number which will map to the year 03. Okay, like this. Okay, so here you will see separate folders for your tenant database, and then separate folders for your long system database. If you see system database, we have, if you expand this one, so here you can have service level or storage level. So if you see service level, here we have the name servers which store the topological information and the some data for the system related. If you see here, it is also using the same volume HANA data SID, but the folder is different, HTTP 001. In the MNT 001, it having the HTTP 001. If you go in the your tenant database, you will see the MNT 001, but under that you will see the folders, different folders. So your tenants database will use the same data volumes, but it having this separate the folders. So each and every tenant database will have their own separate the folders in HANA data SID and then HANA log SIDs. Similar like for your XX engine, it is having the separate folders and the files. Okay, a separate folders for data and the logs. Here is 03, here is the 02. Okay, forget about the .003. I don't know what is that exactly. I think it is mapped to the port number, but it is not the case. So it is not mapped to the port numbers. Okay, so 03 is not mapped to the port number, so it's created by default. Okay, so by looking this one, you can identify which is the data folders for my tenants. If you see in the data, and under that you have the DAT files, data volumes. So that data, that files is there under this location. Okay, and the size for this one is 3.6 GB. Okay, the same like for the logs, we have the log segments. So under that logs, we have the log segments. Yeah, the free writing, I'll cover that part later. Yeah, so the log segments basically contain the reader logs. Okay, and then whenever we take up backups for the log segments, log backups, then it takes the backup for your these all logs. Okay, once the backup is done, it's create the offline the logs on some other location. Yeah, so the log segment get backup when log backup is triggered. Yeah, so systemdb and the tenants having their own folder structure under the volumes. Configuration part I will cover later. In the system information, so whatever we have seen, so here by default the predefined SQL statement are there. If you want to monitor the block transaction, you just click on the block transaction here, and it will take you to the the block transaction. Is there any block transaction? It will show you here. So directly one click you can to monitor your block transactions. Like if you want to monitor field backups, just click on the field backups. It will show you if there is any the failed log backups or the data backups. Okay, similar like if you want to the largest tables. Okay, if you want the largest tables from the database, then you can just click on the size of tables on the disk. Okay, so if you click on, so you will see the size. You can just take this all in the Excel format and then sort, and whatever the tables is largest, you can find out. So this is on the disk. If you want to see the largest table used, memory used, so what are the tables, they use the more memory. Sorry, it will show you the column tables and the row tables. Okay, so number of row table used, the memory used by the row tables, the memory used by the column tables. Yeah, here it will show you that. But here, if you want, if your memory usage is going, the memory usage for your HANA database is always 100%, then you can have this one, and you can share this information, size on the tables on the disk, this information to the developers or application team. Basically, we share the application team to archive the the data from these all tables. So largest tables, just pick whatever the largest table is there, top 10 or top 20. You can ask them to do the cleanups. Okay, so we also monitor this the largest tables on daily basis. So top 10, the largest table we monitor, and we keep on the in Excel sheet on daily basis, and we monitor. Okay, this monitoring is required to make your memory under utilize. If your database table is growing, that means that your database will grow. If your database grow or table grow, then memory utilization will also increase. If you don't do cleanups, then your memory utilization will go higher. You have to add more memory, then you have to request the new license from the SAP service marketplace for the increase in the memory. So it will be a cost for the projects. So better involve the application team to archive the tables data, which is the data is older than maybe 1 year, 2 years. Those data, they have to decide whether they want to archive or they want to keep. So that decision up to them. So we have to regularly, so what we do monthly, we analyze this all, and then we send out emails to the functional team that you have to look for this table which is increasing day by day, and then based on that they take a actions. Fine. Okay, so in the system information, shortcut is there. You can monitor shortcuts. Okay, and then in the diagnostic files, so in the diagnostic files, the diagnostic files for system DB and then tenant database are different. Okay, so if you see the system diagnostic files, you will see some other files. You will see your big the list in the system DB, but in tenant database, you will see the specific to your index server and the exception. So what is there in the diagnostic files? So diagnostic files is referring to a trace volumes. So whatever the trace volumes we have here, the trace volumes. So this trace volume are nothing but the diagnostic files. So whatever the trace or diagnostic files we have here, whatever files you see here, that is coming from the trace folders. So under this trace, whenever we restart the HANA database, whenever you activate any trace in HANA system, like expensive statement trace, and one trace folder created here, and in that it will write everything. If you enable the user trace to identify the missing authorization for the users in the DB level, at the DB level, one trace file authorization trace files will be created in this one. So whatever the trace you are enabling, okay, so you will see one files generated over here. Okay, so if you see, this is the default trace. These all are the by default. We can say that these all of the trace are the the service trace. So whenever the we restart the HANA database, so we have these services. So each service is having their trace, the files. So restart, start, stop, all the logs are written to the specific service file. For example, a system is restarted, then index servers also restarted. Then this index servers, uh, the trace for index servers is written to the this one. So if you see that index servers underscore HANA VMs is the hostname dot 3003 dot it is the port number of your index server dot 00 dot trc. So this is your database trace for your index servers. Whenever you restart, it will write the trace. If you open this one, you will see the lot of things are there. You won't able to understand. So if you see the save point is executed, then it's the copy the data from memory to a disk. Okay, so a lot of things is happening in the backgrounds on the index server. So whatever the things is happening, the logs will be written over there. Restart logs. If you go up, then you see the shutdown. If you shut down, then it will write the shutdown service startup. Okay, if you're starting, it will write the startup logs. Okay, if you go up, yes. Service shutdown. If you shut down, then it will write the shutdown logs. Yeah. If you have any out of memory dump, okay, if there is any out of memory dump, then you will see the errors here. So if you look for the logs, if is there any issues in the HANA database, you will see here. If you control find errors, type errors, if there is any errors, then it will show you the errors. Okay, so sometime there may be some warnings. Okay, if you have the issues in the HANA database, then yeah, we look for the warnings as well. Okay, so it's very difficult to identify the issues for the HANA database by looking these trace files. Okay, so basically, if you're having these database access for you in your project, so I would suggest that you daily just go with this trace and then I read something. Okay, so if you're reading the trace files on daily basis, then you will come to know that this is this trace is either it is if it is occurring daily, then that is mean that those trace files those logs are valid logs. Okay, and that is occurring daily basis. If you see the something is different than others, that means that there may be some issues. So these all are normal the logs log files which is written by the HANA database. So what I do, I not daily but on weekly basis I look for all these trace files. Okay, so these all are the commons. So if I see anything like warnings or something else which is I never seen, then I look for the information about that, the logs by Google or by using the service.sap support.com. There you can just paste and then you'll get the details. Okay, so yeah, so nobody is there in the even SAP will not able to identify if there is any issues in the index servers. Okay, so they take a lot of times. Okay, so yeah, so right now we don't have any issues, but in the systems we monitor, and sometimes what happened that your SQL statement if you set the SQL statement limit, then that SQL statement will be terminated by the HANA database if it is utilizing the more than that set limit. So those information also you can see in the index servers as well. Yeah. So yeah. Other thing is that if you see, this is your database trace, and this is HDB cons. This is related to the, the, if you execute any statement um, in the HANA database using the HDB cons. So HDB cons are the utility. Okay. Okay. So yeah. So we don't use that one. So basically, that is used for to perform some, some troubleshooting. So that is SD cons. Basically, very advanced topic for troubleshooting the memory issues. Okay. So whatever the statement you execute to clean up your memory, okay, using the SDB cons utility, those SQL statement you will see in here. So all the trace for SDB cons you will see under this the files. Other things are unload and the load. So whenever you stop HANA database, it unload the data from memory to a memory to disk. Or if if some database is kicked out from the memory to a disk, some tables are kicked out from memory to a disk, okay, by users or by systems, okay, those information will be there in unload. Okay. So if you open the unload, so you will see that all the SQL statement which is unloaded from memory to this. So this basically is happen when you do the restart of your HANA database. The load means loading the data or tables from a disk to a memory. Okay. So when you start HANA database, it load the data tables from disk to a memory. So you can see the logs, whatever the tables are loaded into the memory. You can see the under this one. So these are the tables. Okay. Another thing is that table consistency checks. So in the HANA database 2.0, the table consistency checks is done during the startup. Okay, so during the startup, it checks the table consistency. Okay, and then if there is any issues, so during the startup, it will show you the errors. If it is if that error is resolvable, then the HANA database itself resolve the consistency, and then it will start the database. If the issue table consistency issue which is not resolved by the database, then we have to look for that one, and then we have to resolve that table consistency with the help of ACP. So we don't have any issues. I never face any issue with the table consistency checks. So it is managed by the database itself during the startups. So this is the good features to check the table consistency. So basically table consistency checks what it checks. It checks for your tables, whether that tables is corrupted, whether the page or disk page corrupted for that particular tables or not. So it checks that one. If it's found, if it is any errors, then it will resolve by default. If there is any hardware errors which cannot be resolved by the HANA database, which require our intervention, then it will show you the errors like this. So row store reorg. So during the the startup, it also does the reorganization of your row store tables. Okay, so during the startup, it does a lot of things like table consistency checks, then row store, the reorganizations. Yeah, so those all logs you can see here in this the trace file store. Cancellation request, but not something like that. So nothing to cancel, but nothing to cancel. Nothing is there for the row tables with this system, empty system. If you have any row tables, user defined tables, then it will reorganize automatically. So reorg means it will reorg the row store, means it will shrink your tables, it will shrink your database table size. If you see here executed statement. So whatever the statement you execute in the HANA systems by users or application, you will see in these trace files. So whatever statement is executed till date in the HANA database, you will see those SQL statement over there as well. And then and then in the trace configuration. So in the trace configuration, we configure the trace. So you can configure the trace from trace configurations, like for expenses statement trace, performance trace, SQL trace. Okay, but do not configure the expenses statement trace from this trace configuration, because it require many things which we need to enable manually. Okay, so once you enable the expensive trace from the configuration tab, then later if you want to inactive, you can inactive the expensive trace, and then you can again activate the expensive trace once you enable from the configuration tab. So we'll see that the next week for the configuration tab, how to configure the expenses statement. So by default, if you see that after the installation, the database trace is enabled. Okay, so interview question: when you installed the HANA database, which trace is enabled by default? So it is a database trace. So database trace is enabled by default after the installation. So if you see whatever the trace we are getting here, it is nothing but a database trace. So whatever you are doing in the database, the trace is generated. Trace are generated, and that trace is generated by this database trace. If you disable this one, then you won't see any the trace written over here. Okay, so by default it is there, and it is not recommended to disable. So don't disable the database trace, keep it by default. So it will generate all the logs. You can enable the SQL trace. You can enable the SQL trace for the SQL statements. So if the users want to enable the SQL trace, you can enable here. Just if you click on the edit configurations. So SQL trace is nothing but to trace your SQL statement. So here, so for the application users or database users, so if you want to enable SQL trace for the users, or you can enable this for the users and the database application users or the database users. So yeah, so we just type the users name, application users or database users, and then once it is activated, then the users, whenever user execute any SQL statements, so those whatever the SQL statement they execute, it will record in the trace file. So it is not open. Maybe that something. So same like for the performance trace. The performance trace is running the system performance trace. So system related performance, you can enable from the performance trace. So the developer doesn't know about this all these things, SQL trace and then performance trace. Okay. So whenever the SAP asks to enable the trace for SQL trace or performance trace, they will provide you the guidance, the SQL the node, SAP nodes how to enable this one. So if you see that performance trace, so start tracing, okay, standard trace, okay, then trace files. This trace file will be created in the default. Then database user, which database user you want to trace, you can specify the database users. If you specify all by default, you can specify the application users, SE01 users, application names, okay, and then the passport, the trace level, high, medium, okay, whatever the SAP recommend that asking for the performance test for your database to analyze the issues. So based on that, you just select and then click next. So it will start tracing. Okay, once you done with the trace and the the particular date times, for example, SAP asks to enable the trace for 30 minutes. So just enable this one, and after 30 minutes, again go and then we click on the stop trace. Okay, so it will stop your performance trace, and then you can share this performance trace with the SAP for further analysis. Okay, so it is a rare case, SQL trace and the performance trace. Rare case SAP asks if there is any serious issue. The most commonly used is user specific trace. So in the user specific trace, if database users facing some authorization issues, so in the DB level, database security is there. So the many people like HANA admin, HANA security, then the developers, many developers, ABAPer, then the BW, they do codings, they create the objects. If they face any issues and that issue like related to authorization, and it is not known by anyone, like security consultant, they are not aware, they don't know what is the issues, whether it is authorization issues, whether it is some other issues, or whether it is something the system issues. Okay, so if they feel that it is something related to authorization and it is not showing any errors, and it is showing errors in execution, or sometimes it shows the you are not authorized to execute, but it don't show you what object level access you need. So here the security team, they go in user specific trace, they click here the new configuration. In it is all we do in Canon database. There they enable the trace for user specific to find out the missing authorization. So application level, the missing authorization they get from SC53, but for the database level, they get the missing authorization from user specific trace. So here you can type anything, context, any context. So any context you could type. So I given my Abdul name. So with the Abdul name, one trace file will be created under the diagnostic files, and inside that I will be having all the missing authorizations for that particular users. So whatever the users you want to trace, you just type here. Okay, like for example, if you have the system users, but by default system user is having the full access. If you type system users, you just select your users who facing the authorization issues, or whether it is application users. Okay, type this one and then just click show all component, and then here's authorization. Authorization. So authorization were executed in the index servers. So this authorization they change from errors to info, and then after that, so why we are choosing index servers, because everything is executed in the index servers. Okay, then click next, then finish, and whenever this system user execute transaction, not transaction, SQL statement, and if system generate the authorization issues, you're not having the authorization to run this one, then whatever the object is missing for the authorization, so that authorization object you can see under the diagnostic files. One file will be created. If you refresh here, this, if you see that Abdul, so HANA VMs is the host name, index servers, then again HANA VMs, then port number for index server, and then Abdul. So Abdul context I have created, given in the case. So if you open this one, then whatever the missing authorization is there, the user will, the security team will analyze this one, and whatever the missing authorization, they will, give the access to the users. So right now, if you see here, no authorization is missing. If there is any missing authorization, then here they will get some like some something that the users having the authorization errors and what object it required. So the some object will be there here, for example here something, okay, and they will look for this one and they will grant that object to the users. So this way they can analyze the missing authorization in the HANA database. Okay, so once the users done with the trace, done with their activity, then we have to delete the this one. Otherwise, it will keep recording the the logs and which increase the user trace, which increase the trace size. So just click here directly to delete this one. Okay, so it will delete the trace. So once done. So this is done by the security team. Sometimes they ask for the basis to enable the user specific trace. So they will provide you the user's name. So for which users you they want to enable. So where we can see these all diagnostic files from the OS level. If you go OS level, log into the SID ADM like Dev ADM, and then CD trace. If it types CD trace directly, then it will take you to trace folders. Okay, this is the trace folders. Where it is, you user SAP Dev HDB00 HANA VMs host name and then trace. If you list down ls minus ltr hyphen ltr, so it will show you the system db trace. If you see, if you compare system db, let me move this all these things. If you see here, whatever you can see from the HANA Studio diagnostic files, same thing you can check from OS level under the from this location. So whatever we are getting on the HANA Studio diagnostic files, we are getting those from here. And for the tenant specific, the trace, this one, where we are getting from other folders. Under same, we have the db underscore dev. Okay, so this is your tenant database. So what are the tenant databases we get, like HD1? So one trace folders for HD1 will be created under this folder. So, under these folders, trace folders. Okay, uh, this trace folder. So this trace folder you will see the db underscore HD1. Okay, so if you go in that one, you will see the trace for your index servers, access engine for your tenant database. Okay, so interview question: what is the location for your trace? Okay, so you can say that this location USR ACP tab, then HDB 00 HANA. If you don't know this, this path, no issue. If you type directly CD trace, then it will take you to that location as well. Okay, so yeah, so but in interview question, they will ask for path as well. So you just say user HCP SID, then instance number HDB 00, then HANA VMs, then trace. Or from the SID area, if you execute CD trace, it will take you to that path. And then under this one, you will see system DB trace, and then tenant specific trace, tenant database specific trace. Fine. Any questions, guys, till now?
How is this SQL and performance trace that we have over here different from the one that we have in ST05?
ST05.
ST12, ST05, I mean the one that we do from the application layer. User specific trace, I understand this will be the DB authorization tracing.
Yeah. So
but
yeah,
SQL...
so this, yeah, so SQL trace and the performance trace. So it is rarely we take whenever ACP asks for us to give this the trace. So basically this trace is referring to the database. to identify any database issues, to identify any bugs in the database layer. It is not related to your application. So it is purely database. So the SQL trace or performance test, whatever you are taking from the application level, so that only give you the information about your from the application the level. So like if there is any missing index, for example, so we don't have the index in the HANA database. So from that application level trace, you can identify where my most of the time taken by the that particular statements, like at the ABAP level or database level. Okay, those information you will get it. So those trace is different and this trace is different. So this trace is basically DB specific system related trace. Okay.
Yeah.
So most of the time we go with the application level and we do the enable the trace on the application level. But this is the very rare case. If SAP wants, then we give. Otherwise, on our daily purpose, we don't go with this one. We don't enable this SQL trace. Okay, so for example, one of the the SQL statements which having the expensive statement, which causing more memory and the CPU utilization. If in that cases, sometimes we enable the SQL trace and the performance trace as well. Yeah, if the functional team asks us to enable. Yeah. Any other questions? No questions? Then fine. So yeah, so next week we'll meet same time, 10 a.m. and we'll cover. Let me see what I can cover. Okay, installation, post installation, the admin tools we cover today. So HANA operation we'll see. So in the HANA operation we'll see that how to configure the database basically. Okay, restart, startup, the methods for starting. So what are the tools are available for startup? And then we'll see the memory management as well. Okay, HANA operation, then the memory management. In the memory management, we'll see the delta merge process. Then technical deployment option we already covered. So by next week, we will be able to complete the 50%. And then after that, we'll go with the backups and recovery. Then users, maintenance. This multi-tenant we already completed. Like starting, stopping tenants, creating tenants, dropping tenants. Then scalability concept, high availability and the disaster recovery, then HANA system replication, then HANA cockpit, and then demo. Yeah, fine. So yeah, so we'll discuss today, and then we'll continue from the next same time. Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thanks all.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Yeah, bye.